elderly shoppers' bags.
Good. Pitch
Pitch,
and scowling.
scowling.
Yeah. Okay, questions here, guys. Okay, no questions. Amp, how's it going?
Doing well. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you fine. And
Okay.
thanks for coming in. Good to have you.
Thank
All
you.
right, Julieta, can you read the next part? Julieta, you're muted. Amp, can you read the next part?
Meanwhile, I would twirl the umbrella over my shoulder. When we exited to the store, we would leave our things there. My brother and I liked it when our mother took us to stores. We liked it when our mother took us to store because my brother and I didn't own many things. We didn't own a baseball. We didn't own an umbrella. But when we were within the store's walls, we could own a baseball and an umbrella. As customers of a store, as people who had the potential to buy any object within the store's walls, we were given ownership temporarily of any object within that store. We could carry the objects with us wherever we wanted. They were ours. My brother would kick his stickers into our car, clods of dirty no, of dirt scattering across the store's floor, and yank rubber waters over his jeans and his socks. I would wear unusually hats meant for the colorblind and the blind. Once we owned a skateboard, once we owned backpacks.
Okay. And let's look at unusual.
Unusual.
And waders, rubber waders.
Waders. What is waders?
A wader is
Mhm.
it's like a boot that you put over your shoes that are plastic. So if you're fishing, you put on
Okay.
waders so you don't get wet.
Okay.
Um, okay. Any other questions here? All right. Julieta, welcome back. Are you there?
No, I'm not.
I can hear
I
you.
don't. Oh, okay.
Okay.
I'm here.
Nice. Can you read the next part?
Okay. Once we owned calculators. My brother and I didn't like calculators, even if our mother could have bought us calculators. We wouldn't have wanted our mother to buy us calculators. We thought calculators were boring, but we had never owned calculators, so we carried the calculators through a store. Once adding things, subtracting things, multiplying things until the calculator's displays were maxed at nines, because we felt that that was an experience we needed to have. Felt that if we ever were to understand children who owned calculators, we ourselves would have to have owned calculators. Felt that if we ever were to understand anything about our country, first we would have to understand children who owned calculators. My brother and I owned few things when we weren't within a store's walls. In our neighborhood, we were chased by children who owned calculators. The children would tackle us. The children would pin us against dumpsters. The children would use their calculators to tally our imaginary crimes. Mm. Our mother would shout at us when we came home with split lips and bloody noses, like we had given them to each other. Our mother would sing while we crushed yolk and crushed syrup from our plates. would use a wrist to tuck stray curls of hair behind her ear again, her hands dripping soapy water.
Good. Well, she scrubbed crusted.
She
Scrubbed.
scrubbed crust.
And crusted.
Crusted.
Good. Okay. Questions here.
What does scrubbed crusted mean?
Okay, so crusted yolk and syrup. So if something is crusted, it's become hard. And if you're scrubbing it, you're like trying to clean it with, you know, force by like rubbing it hard with a sponge. So she's doing dishes, is all. And then she's like putting her hair behind her ear using her wrist so she doesn't get her hair all wet. That's it. Any other questions? Oh, chaste as well. Can you repeat chaste?
Chaste.
Perfect. Okay, good. And what was it? Ksenia, can you read the next part?
Our mother would snore on the couch, an arm dangling into the floor, fingernails glittering against the grey of the carpet. Our mother owned what nobody wanted: a job frying chicken, an apartment above a video store, a heart that didn't like beating. Once a fortune-teller had visited our school. The fortune-teller had told my brother and I that some day we would be hip-hop superstars. The fortune-teller hadn't been paid to visit our school. The fortune-teller had been trespassing. My brother and I hated hip-hop. We didn't know what we would become. What we became were orphans. It didn't matter if your heart was defective. What you were born with didn't come with a warranty. Our mother owned a television. My brother and I were watching a television program with our mother. People would never met and been paid for have their laughs recorded. Their laughs were replayed again and again during the television program. Our mother laughed with them. Then our mother had stopped working. My brother and I were older now. My brother was a spindly, black-haired, buck-toothed youth who kept his sneakers heel to heel. I was spindly, white-haired, buck-toothed youth who kept his sneakers toe to toe. We liked blinking. They told us the name of the orphanage where they were taking us. Blink, blink, blink. What we said.
Blink, blink, blink was what we said. Okay. That sounded really good. Dangling onto the floor?
Dangling onto the floor.
And glittering against the gray carpet.
Glittering against the gray of the carpet.
Good. Any other questions here? Okay, Amp, can you read the next part?
My brother and I owned a few pairs of yellowed underwear, a jar of pencils whose bodies we had gnawed with our teeth. We took them with us. The youth at the orphanage said that we weren't actual orphans because of our father. The youth at the orphanage didn't own calculators. A youth named Henry, with reddish eyebrows and brownish hair, lived at the orphanage. Henry sat on his cot, legs folded together, hands folded together, eyes closed. Henry's from Pittsburgh, said the other youth. Oops, I lost. Henry's from Wichita.
Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh. Wichita.
Wichita.
Wichita. Henry's from Norfolk. Nobody knew where Henry was from. Henry never moved. Henry never spoke. Nobody knew if Henry ate. The others said Henry wasn't an orphan. Said Henry had traveled to the orphanage. in a trance. Said Henry's parents were alive. Said someday Henry would emerge from his trance and would speak the truth to us, and then would leave the orphanage. Because Henry never moved, Henry was useful. And my brother and I hid our jar of pencil between Henry's legs so nobody could take it. My brother and I owned the jar of pencils, but at the orphanage that was meaningless. Ownership is a belief, and without authorities to propagate a belief, the belief disappears. Beyond the orphanage's walls, officers and judges and jailers propagate a belief in ownership.
Okay. Actually, keep reading until the end of that paragraph.
Within the orphanage's walls, the belief wasn't propagated. The orphanage was understaffed. Youth took whatever they wanted, whenever they wanted, like the orphanage was store, where you could own whatever you could carry.
Yeah. Okay, good. Does anybody have any questions here? Okay. Ken, welcome to class. How's it going?
Yes, I'm fine. How are you?
Nice, doing well. Good to see you again. Thanks for coming in.
Good to see you again.
All right. And Julieta, what has happened so far in our story? Basically.
Okay, there are two kids,
Mm-hmm.
two brothers,
Mm-hmm.
and they lost their mother
Yeah.
and became orphanage. So
Orphans.
now they are orphans. Sorry. So now they are in an orphanage.
Yeah. And what did they do in stores at the beginning of the story? What were they doing in stores?
They were poor, so
Mm-hmm.
they used the things into the stores to play during the shopping, and then they left the things there.
Perfect. Okay, that was really good. I think that's a really good description of what's going on so far. Julieta, can you read the next part?
A minivan came to the orphanage. Our grandparents had come for us. We hadn't known about grandparents. When my brother and I lifted Henry's sweatshirt, our jar of pencil wasn't between Henry's legs. My brother slapped Henry's face. I pinched Henry's arm. We wanted Henry to speak the truth to us. Our grandparents' minivan smelled of toffee and mildew. Our grandparents mildew. Our grandparents were as gaunt and as bony as we were. Our grandparents had hated our mother. They said that didn't mean they hated us. My brothers, niggers, were heel to heel on the minivan's floor. My brother's hands were clenched into fists. My sneakers were toe to toe on the minivan's floor. My hands were tucked into my underarms. Our grandparents' radio sang hip hop. My brother and I took a while to invent our own language so that those who overhead us couldn't understand us. My brother and I took a vow to visit the prison where our father was kept, so that we could ask our father a few questions.
Good. Well done. Any questions so far? Gaunt is really skinny, thin, like malnourished almost. Ksenia, can you read the next part?
Yes, my brother and I took a vow to dig our mother's body from its grave, and to steal our mother's body, and to burn our mother's body to ashes, and that we could sprinkle the ashes in the stores where our mother had taken us. Our grandparents lived in a neighborhood where all of the houses were alike, like the houses had been manufactured in a factory. Our grandparents' house had yellow shutters, flower boxes, and a basketball hoop cemented into the driveway. All of the houses had yellow shutters, flower boxes, basketball hoops cemented into their driveways. Our grandparents ate cereal with milk. Once a week our grandparents took us to the church, where priests and choristers
Hmm.
uh, propagated a belief in a being who had created our universe. They said that what the being had created was good. They said that what we had created was bad. The church had yellow shutters. At our grandparents' house, my brother and I owned things. But we didn't like being there. My brother and I went to stores. Once stores had been the size of houses, but now stores were the size of neighborhoods. Leafy fir, fern, ferns
Ferns.
Ferns grew along the store's walkways; fountains hoarded copper and nickel coins the fountains couldn't spend. Adults exercised together, walking the store's walkways in sweatsuits and sweatbands.
Okay, good. Can you repeat grandparents?
Grandparents?
Yeah, instead of grandparents.
Mhm.
Just the emphasis on the first syllable. So a fern is a type of plant. What type of plant? Yeah, so a leaf is just like the type of leaf that they have. Ferns are really small. They kind of curl up and then they unfurl. They're green. I feel like if you think of dinosaurs, you think of ferns. I don't know. I feel like you can look them up. I can't get a picture um, on this, but that's as good as I can describe a fern. And hoarded is like kept to themselves. So if you hoard something, you like keep it to yourself and you don't give it to anybody else. So the fountains were like keeping all these in copper nickel coins. Um, all right, Ken, can you read the next part?
My brother and I spent whole days in the stores, playing video games where the video games were sold, napping on futons where the futons were sold, eating uneaten sandwiches we found on paper plates in the store's sunny plazas. We walked the store's employees. We watered the store's farms. If the farms hadn't been watered, we met other youth who preferred stores to their homes. Anna, fat-cheeked, some snub-nosed youth who squirted her cardigans with the store's perfumes. Lucas, whose cheeks had been tattooed with the symbol of various currencies, and who typed his manifestos on stores' computers. Gon and Benji, who played the store's guitars and who read the store's comics, and who once threw a kegger in store's changing rooms. Sometimes our grandparents would come to the store to buy themselves things, to buy us things. If your grandparents saw us where my brother and I were standing in the window of a row of pivoting fans, our grandparents would say hello. We saw them at store as often as we saw them at home. Our grandparents kept their cupboards stocked with jars of jam, boxes of cookies, sacks of grapefruits and oranges, but my brother and I preferred what we ate at
In stores.
stores.
Can you repeat a kegger?
Kegger?
A kegger. And so a kegger is like a party where you have a barrel of beer instead of like bottles of beer. It's just crazy silly. Guitars,
Guitars,
squirted,
squirted,
and snub-nosed.
snub-nosed, snub-nosed,
Snub-nosed. So if you got a snub
snub-nosed.
nose, you got like a short, fat nose that kind of sticks up, and so you can like, yeah, it's a snub nose. Um, okay, and a cardigan is a sweater. Good. I think you're good. Other than that, let's have Amp. Can you read the next part?
Okay. Um, our grandparents bought us paisley shirts, flannel shirts, brand name sweatshirts, but my brother and I didn't wear them. We wore the same thing from our closet day after day. Black jeans, black sweatshirts, then change into the store's clothing once we were at the store. At our grandparents' house, we owned things, but all at the stores we could own anything. And our grandparents bought us a paisley shirt. Then we owned a paisley shirt, but at the stores we owned all paisley shirts. If our grandparents bought us the newest album by a certain band, then we owned that newest album by that certain band. But at the stores, we owned all the albums by that band. Owned all albums by any band. Owned multiple copies of every album. Perhaps that, more than anything, was why we preferred the stores. At the stores, my brother and I were unaffected by loss. We felt nothing when something broke because 100 replacements were waiting always to replace what had been broken. Once my brother and I took shovels from our grandparents' garage and rode a bus into the city, through the billboards to the graveyard where our mother was buried. We carried our shovels through the graveyard, reading the names on the graves, searching for the name of our mother.
Good. Okay, any questions? It's pretty straightforward. Okay. And Giulietta, can you keep reading? Can you keep reading?
Water dripped from the trees. Pigeons cooed at other pigeons along the
Cooed.
graveyard's cooed
Good.
at other pigeons along the graveyard's pathway. Headlights and taillights
Taillights.
taillights through the streets beyond the graveyard's fences. Our mother's name wasn't there. Our mother wasn't buried where our mother was buried. We sat on somebody's grave. A whiskery, skin-sagging beggar came into the graveyard carrying a camouflage backpack. The beggar was shouting at something imaginary. The beggar was peeling the white from his fingernails with a knife. "I'm going to destroy myself," the beggar shouted. "You use me, you abuse me, you make me feel so cheap," the beggar shouted. "I'm capitalism, I am a market," the beggar shouted. The beggar stopped for a while and convulsed under a tree. "Blink," said my brother. "Blink," I said. The beggar kept coming. The beggar stopped where we were sitting. The beggar's fingers were twitching. The beggar's nostrils were twitching. The beggar asked us what we wanted. We told the beggar we wanted our mother's body. The beggar told us that someday my brother and I would be supereminent physicists. "Supereminent?" my brother said. "Physicist?" I said. The beggar shouted the name of planets at us. The beggar shouted the name of chemicals at us. The beggar asked us for money. A droop-eyed, bald-headed beggar came into the graveyard carrying a polka-dotted umbrella. "I thought I lost you," said the beggar with the polka-dotted umbrella. "I was talking to my daughters," said the beggar with the camouflage backpack. "I'm everywhere. You can't lose me." The beggar bowed to us. The beggar shrugged arm in arm together toward the graveyard's gate.
Trudged.
Trudged.
Yeah, it's like walked heavily. Convulsed.
Convulsed.
And capitalism.
Capitalism.
Okay. And droop-eyed is like when your eyes kind of sag down, so you have like bags under your eyes, we would say. So droop-eyed. If you look really tired, you can be droop-eyed. Okay. Super eminent. You did a really good job with your pronunciation there. What was the question, Giulietta?
Twitching.
Twitching. It's like moving uncontrollably, like really short, fast movements that you can't control. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Any other questions?
Like a rabbit. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a rabbit would twitch its ears. Cats twitch their ears. Drug addicts, when they're like coming out of, or like, I don't know, withdrawing from drugs, they twitch. Like you can't control your movements. It's like shaking uncontrollably. That's like not really shaking. It's just a fast movement. Rabbits is a good explanation. Anyways, Ksenia, can you read the next part? Can you read the next part, Ksenia?
The beggar with a camouflage backpack shouted at the beggar with a polka-dotted umbrella. "This is my graveyard. This is my graveyard, and those are my streets, and the bridges and the undersides of the bridges, and the empty alleyways, all of them, those are mine." The beggar with a polka-dotted umbrella hushed the beggar with a camouflage backpack. The beggars crossed the street. My brother and I rode a bus to our grandparents' neighborhood. My brother briefly was bedridden with the flu. I was suspended from school briefly for dissecting a fatal pig of the biology lab. I wasn't taking biology. We kept stalking the store's employees. Even with love, we preferred what we found in stores. My brother had a crush on a plump, mustached cashier who wore plastic watches with different superheroes on their faces and whose name tag said Raymond Vilkitsky third.
The third.
The third. We would follow him through the store's walkways as Raymond Vilkitsky III unnoted the uniform's tie. Through the store's entryway, the Raymond Vilkitsky III zipped himself into his jacket. Through the trucks and the minivans and the sedans and the store's basalt lots, waving through the cars. My brother's hands clenched into fists. My hands tucked into my underarms, as Raymond Vilkitsky III shook his keys from his jacket, and stand and stare as Raymond Vilkitsky III lowered himself into a bumperless sedan and spotted away from us.
Okay, good. For dissecting.
For dissecting.
Yeah, and it's maybe more of a dissecting. Can you repeat
So
that one?
he killed for dissecting.
He didn't kill it. It was in the biology lab. They have like fetal pigs, and so if you're taking biology, you will dissect. You like cut it apart and check out what's inside.
Mm-hmm.
And so he just dissected it because it was in the biology lab, even though he wasn't taking biology. And they're like, "What are you doing?" They kicked him out for a brief period of time. Yeah. Any other questions? Oh, potholed.
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 And what does it mean, potholed?
Is if there are like large holes in the road, we call those potholes. So pot is like a pan, something you use to cook something, is
Mm-hmm.
a pot, and it's a hole the shape of a pot. It's like a big round pot hole.
Okay.
I don't know how to say that either. Bumperless is like a car that doesn't have a bumper. And right, I'm actually gonna I'm gonna take my computer downstairs while I'm listening to you guys. I forgot I left some beans cooking. So who is it? I promise I'm still listening. I'm just gonna be walking a little bit.
I want
Um,
just to ask you a question.
yeah, what was the question?
And the sedans in the stores bottled lot.
What was that?
So there is a parking lot, and the parking lot is full of holes. I don't know.
Potholes. So a pothole
Yeah.
is just like a hole that is in the shape of a pot. So it's like a hole in the road, a hole in the parking lot. Does that make sense?
Okay.
You don't seem to understand.
No, because I don't understand why there is a lot of potholes in a stores.
They're not in the stores anymore because they followed this worker out to the
Mhm.
parking lot where he's parked his car.
Mhm.
And so where all
Okay.
the cars are parked, they're just holes in that parking lot.
Okay.
So the stores lots. We're talking about the parking lots. These are the
Okay.
parking lots for the stores.
Okay. So the parking lot, the asphalt is full of holes.
Exactly. That are in the shape of pots.
Okay.
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 Any other questions? All right. I think, Ksenia, did you just read?
Yeah.
Okay. Ken, can you read the next part?
Okay. Okay. Raymond, when Raymond Birkitsky third was working, my brother and I would watch him from within racks of sweaters. My crush was on a lip-ringed, bass-headed shelf-stalker who wore fishnet stocking with her uniform and whose uh, name tag's name had been scribbled black. She caught my brother and I watching from within a display of umbrellas. She had been price tagging plastic flags. "Why are you following with me?" she said. "Because I love you," I said. "He loves me too," she said. I said, "He loves somebody named Raymond." She said that she was dating somebody, but that when she was working didn't count. She price tagged my brother's face. She told me to meet her in a changing room. In a changing room, she made me feel like not a person but a thing. We never kissed. When we would meet in the changing rooms, she would unzip her uniform shirt. She would peel her fishnet stocking to her knees. She would spit in her hair. She would face away from me toward the mirror, so that she could watch herself pounding me. "What's your name?" I said. "Don't ask me that," she said. "I know about sex now, but I still don't know about kissing."
Good. Okay. A lip ringed is somebody with a pierced lip. So you have a ring like you're an earring, but it's in your lip. Um, any other questions? Okay. Amp, can you read the next part?
Beyond the store's walls, Bankers and cashiers propagated a belief that money wasn't meaningless. Teachers and provosts propagated a belief that grades weren't meaningless. Advertisers and fashionistas propagated a belief that skirt meant woman and then tie meant man. Our grandparents drove my brother and me to the prison where our father was kept. Our grand our grandparents said our father was a monster. They had warned our mother. They said, but our mother had ignored them. Now they were warning us. The prison's lot was like the store's lot, trucks and minivans and sedans. My brother and I whispered about Ramon. Our grandparents muttered about our father. In the prison, we sat in an empty room. When you visited a prisoner, you could have a contact visit or a non-contact visit. My brother and I wanted a contact visit. We couldn't have it. A few days earlier, our father had been caught under his cot with a hammer chipping a tunnel through the floor. Our father was restricted to non-contact visits for a year. His tunnel had been cemented. His tunnel hadn't been a tunnel even. His tunnel had been a hole. It hadn't been able to fit anything more than our father's head. That's how far our father had gotten. A non-contact visit meant we would meet our father face to face, but separated by a pane of glass. They brought him into an empty room connected to our empty room. Our father was a freckly, gray-haired, but a buck-toothed adult with child-sized hands. He wore an orange jumpsuit that said he didn't own it.
Good. Okay. Buck-toothed adult. Buck-toothed adult.
Buck-toothed adult.
Yeah. Even a little T sound at the end of buck-toothed. But that was good. Any questions here? Okay. And Juliet, can you read the next part?
Okay. It said the prison owned it. It said the prison owned him. Our father put a black telephone to his face. My brother and I put black telephones on our faces. Our grandparents sat on chairs behind us, muttering about our father. Our father stared at us. Don't you have anything to say? He said. Blink, we said. This is it. Here I am. This is what made you. Here's the other half of your genius, he said. Blink, we said. If your mother were alive, she wouldn't want you to be here, he said. Blink, we said. Aren't you going to say anything? He said. My brother was nudging me to say something. I was pinching my brother to say something. More nudging, more pinching. We said something. We asked our father why we did what he did. You mean the tunnel? He said. Before that, we said. The same reason anybody in here or anybody out there do what they do. Did what they did, he said. I wanted money, more things, better things, different things, more nudging, more pinching. We asked him what it was like in there. Not what I wanted, he said. Here I can't have anything. I buy something magazines from my friend. They take them away from me. I buy some pills from my friend. They take them away from me. I buy a hammer from my friend. They take it away from me. Here nobody can have anything. All those empty rooms, it makes you anxious, jittery, demanded. You understand? More nudging, more pinching. We asked him what we should know.
Good. Okay. Questions? Freckly, or is like those spots in your skin? They're just generally a little bit darker than the shade of your skin. Lots of Irish people have lots of freckles. Okay, any other questions? Okay. And let's have Ksenia. Can you read the next part?
Okay. Okay, you should know that your great-grandfather had a heart attack, and your great-uncle had a heart attack, and your uncle had a heart attack, so you'll probably have heart attacks. I'll probably have a heart attack, he said. You should know that your great-uncle suffered from pyromania, and your uncle suffered from pyromania. You will probably suffer from pyromania, he said. You should know that your grandmother was bilingual, so you may be bilingual, he said. We told him we weren't bilingual. They came from our father, but our father kept talking. They made our father stand, but our father kept talking. You should know that you have different fathers, he said, and that I'm neither of those fathers. And isn't that how it is for all of us? Aren't mothers always the same, but fathers are always changing, are always different moment to moment, even now, even here. Can't you see it happening? He said, and then they took him away and our grandparents drove us home. My brother was hospitalized briefly with appendicitis. I served on a jury briefly for kidnapping trial.
Next little part.
Guilty, the jury said.
Good. Appendicitis.
Appendicitis.
Good. And bilingual.
Bilingual.
Good. Any questions here? Does anybody know what pyromania is?
Yes, when a person make fire everywhere.
Yeah. Somebody who likes lighting things on fire. Can't quite stop. Okay. And Ken, can you read the next part?
After that, my brother and I began sneaking things into stores. We never talked about doing it, but we did it anyway. The next time we went to the stores, we took our grandparents' bathrobes. The bathrobes smelled of sour breath and burnt coffee. The bathrobes were stiff with years of dried bath water and dried sweat. We carried the bathrobes into a store. We found where the store's bathroom was sold. We hung our grandparents' bathrobes there with the others. Then we went and napped on the store's futons. The next time we took our grandparents' doormat. The next time we took painting from our grandparents' hallways, took hangers from our grandparents' closets, took spatulas and ladles and whisks from our grandparents'
Nice.
kitchen. We took price tags from other things, stuck them onto our grandparents. We didn't know why we were doing it. Raymond Bisky third kissed my brother under the store's glittering chandeliers. My crush was fired, but I found other employees to love. For every crush the stores fired, the stores hired a new employees to replace her.
Good. Chandeliers.
Chandeliers.
Yeah, really nice
Chandeliers.
job with spatulas and ladles and whisks. That was great. A ladle is not wooden. Generally, it's metal. It's like it's almost like a bowl that is attached to a stick, and the bowl, like you drop into the soup and then you pull it out and you have like a lot of soup on the spoon. Does that make sense, Julieta? Okay, so do ladle, kind of. And Am, can you read the next part?
Where our grandparents' sofa had stood, the floor was marked with scuffs. Where our grandparents' coat had hung, our grandparents' knobs were empty. Where our grandparents' paintings had hung, the wallpaper was brighter in squares where it hadn't been bleached by the sun. Our grandparents might have been upset about their missing things, but our grandparents' brain had broken years before. Our grandparents wandered their house arguing about things that hadn't happened, rearranging their cans of beers. But what do we do? My brother said. I don't know, I said. My brother and I were older now. My brother was a bulky, black-haired, buck-toothed adult who kept plastic glasses in his hair. I was a bulky, white-haired, buck-toothed adult who kept plastic glasses on his face. We like tugging our earlobe. We'll take them with us, my brother said. We can't take them with us, I said. We didn't live in our grandparents' house anymore. We lived in stores. Once stores had been the size of neighborhoods, but now stores were the size of cities. Light poles lit the store's avenues. Monorails hummed from station to station. Flags fluttered from the balconies of the store's hotels. Others now were playing our game. We lived together in the stores, never leaving, marking the change of the seasons by the changing decorations. When snowflakes and reindeer were hung from the store's ceilings, Raymond Belkitsky III and my brother celebrated their anniversary. Raymond Belkitsky III and my brother had been married in the stores, in a sunny plaza wearing the store's tuxedos.
Good. And let's have Ksenia, or Julieta, can you read the next part if you got a little bit of time? We're almost over. It's like pretty much over.
Once my brother, mm, once my brother and I were aboard one of the store's yacht, where the yacht were sold, when an employee began shouting at us from the floor. We were wearing the store's newest swimsuits, reading a pile of the store's newest magazines. Hey, you, the employee shouted, his brownish hair trembling, his reddish beard bobbing with each of the words he shouted. Blink, my brother said. Blink, I said. Come down from here, the employee shouted. One-piece swimsuits were fashionable that season. My brother's swimsuit was white with black stripes. My swimsuit was black with white stripes. We stood on the floor with the employee among the store's yacht. The employee stared at our swimsuit. The employee was muttering something into his headset. The employee stopped muttering. We tugged our earlobes. I know you, the employee said. Do you remember me? The employee said. We lived together at the orphanage, the employee said. No, Henry. Blink, we said. Blink, 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 we said. Henry, we said. Yes, it's me. I'm afraid, Henry said. And I'd like to say that I'm sorry because once I stole something for you. I would have these visions sometimes for days, sometimes for weeks, and once, between visions, I felt someone doing something to my body, which wasn't unusual because the other at the orphanage were often doing things to me, knotting my arms together, greasing my hair with butter, carrying me around from floor to floor, but when I picked, it was you, both of you, putting something between my legs.
Nice. Okay. And let's have Ksenia, can you read the next part?
And I felt like it was an offering, like you were my first followers, because in those days I dreamed of becoming a prophet, of starting a new religion, or a new sect of an old religion, or a new order of an old sect of an old religion. So while you and the others at the orphanage slept, I took the pencils and hid the pencils and prayed to them sometimes, but what happened was the later, after the visions had stopped and wouldn't come, and my dreams of becoming a prophet had become nightmares of becoming a nobody, a nothing, a nameless, commonplace employee, which is what I have become. But anyway, that happened was that later, as I was sitting Cyril with the other orphans, snooping into my mouth, feeling queasy, feeling depressed, basing over my nightmares. One of the other orphans found the pencils where I had hidden them, and the orphans began talking about you, the two of you, and how you had been looking for the pencils but hadn't found them. And that's when I understood that it hadn't been an offering. What you had given me understood that I had stolen your pencils from you, and then I felt even more queasy and felt even more depressed, because I hadn't meant to steal from you, and I was sorry that I had, but I couldn't tell you that, because you didn't live at the orphanage anymore. But you don't think that's why my visions were taken from me, because I had become dishonest, because I had taken what wasn't mine, Blink we said.
Good. And Ken, can you read the next part?
Okay. Blink, we said. So, anyway, I'm sorry, and although I carried the pencils with me for years and years, hoping to find you, I don't have the pencils anymore. They were lost in the fire, Henry said. My brother's hands were clenched into fists. My hands were tucked into my underarms. Somewhere the store's monorail was beeping. My brother and I brought Henry onto the yacht. We told Henry we had all of the pencils now that we could want. We told Henry it was better to be a nobody than somebody. We asked Henry if he had even seen either of us in his visions.
Ever.
Ever seen either of us in his visions. Henry gripped the yacht's rail. Henry's wrists were marked with nicks and cuts. Henry's under eyes were puffy. Once, yes, one of the last visions I ever had. Henry said, I saw that one day you would become notorious revolutionaries, that you would be executed for treason, but that after your death the people would sing your names, would carry a flag on your face, that you would be remembered as much for your good as for your bad.
Okay. Executed.
Executed.
Good. And treason.
Treason.
Good. And let's have Amp. Can you finish the story?
And where we buried with our mother, we said.
Were we?
Yes. Were we buried with our mother? We said. Yes, Henry said. And were you part of our revolution? We said. Yes, 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 Henry said. I was carrying one of your flags, and my brother and I sat on the judge with Henry and watched the people moving through the stores, watched people carrying blankets into unzipped tents where the store's tents were sold, watched people emerging from the store's bathroom, wiping their faces with the store's towels. Watch the people visiting the unsold hamsters, the unsold parrots. Watch people kicking balls along the store's avenues. Watch people stepping into pairs of the store's newest boots. From where we stood, when we stood, it was impossible to tell the store's shopper from the store's tenant. We almost could feel the store's walls expanding, could feel the world beyond them shrinking, could feel it disappearing more and more.
Nice. Yacht.
Yacht.
Good. Okay. Cool. Any questions here? I'm glad you got to finish that. It's a long one. I was a little bit nervous. Yeah. What do you guys think? No thoughts? Hmm. All right. Thanks for coming in, I guess. All right.
Happy